Well, Ken, thank you for your time. The 1-1, how do you feel 1-1 went?
Best I could describe 1-1 is it was squishy. So, I mean, I could take it by territory, by product line. Property cat always gets the most attention. The market went down anywhere from 5 to 15%, but still good. Still adequate. Too much supply, chasing too little demand. But I like our book. We deployed 99% of the capacity that we wanted to deploy. You know, we partnered with Integral, our ILS partner. They deployed 95% of the limit they wanted to deploy. So it was really a battle for signings. So in that battle, I think we did a great job. So property cat went well, and that's always gets the most attention, particularly at 1-1. The other product lines, you know, it just depends on the product line. So most of them did well. Most of them were coming off of higher levels where the rates are going down, or maybe the commissions are going up a bit, but they're still good markets. So we basically held serve in terms of our volume, specialty lines, London lines. Professional still in the doldrums in terms of the market. So we continue to trim our D&O book, which isn't fun, but you know, you got to manage the cycle. Cyber makes no sense to us at all. The original prices are going down for the second year, and all the reinsurers can't get enough of it, and they're competing not by paying more commission. So that's a challenging market. So we'll do the right things there. But so overall, it was a squishy market, but an adequate market.
Some of it was supply, some of it was demand. The reinsurers were keen to deploy capacity. The insurers were keen to retain more net. Both contributed. Was it equal, or was there one that was more significant than the other?
The supply definitely is there. It's not. There's not a lot of new money coming in, like a lot of third-party capital. But 24 was a very good year for reinsurers, off of 23, which is very good for reinsurers, property reinsurers. I'm mainly talking about. So there's a lot of retained earnings being plot back in, but not a lot of new money. So the supply, any program, and I would say this holds for casualty as well. Any program that was deemed of a certain quality with an acceptable rate level is oversubscribed. So we get our unfair share because of our relationships with the clients and the brokers and our financial security, so that's good. But it's a bad sign going forward. You know, if the supply keeps getting that aggressive, you can only fight that for so long. The demand, I'm not sure if insurance companies are keen to take more net on some of these product lines. I think they will take more net on some of these product lines if they can't get what they want from the reinsurers.
Right.
So I guess that's a distinction. Casualty is the most complicated of all, U.S. casualty. The results have been so bad from prior years, but the current year conditions are, you know, setting that aside, are quite strong. They're, you know, a lot of the good clients are getting double-digit rate increases. They're keeping their limits low and contained. They're tightening up their risk selection. So if you didn't know anything about the past, you just joined the casualty U.S. market, you go, oh, these are great deals, you write them. But given the past, you should have a lack of confidence in deploying that capital. Like, okay, you're getting 15 points of price, but is that enough? I don't know.
Loss trend be 20.
Right. So when you mix all that up, it's not an oversupply, but it's not a fearful supply. So, and the demand's there. So the casualty is the most interesting market right now, for sure.
Talking of fear, we've had a wild start to 25 with the Los Angeles fires.
Wild, pun intended.
Sorry, yes. Hot start to the year. Do you want to comment on the consequences of what's happening in Los Angeles?
Consequences in terms of the industry, or?
Yes.
Listen, massive destruction. Industry estimates, it's still January. So estimates are all over the place. They're kind of coalescing in the last couple of weeks around 30 billion, let's say, industry loss, 30 to 35. I think that's where our head is right now, but it's California. And, you know, it's LA County. It's the birthplace of every trial lawyer in the country. Trial lawyers make the Floridian lawyers look like amateurs. So I think there's going to be unknown costs that could drive the industry loss up big. It could create a big tail. This could be a long tail event in a short tail line for sure. We could be trying to figure out what the losses are 5, 6, 7 years from now. So it's really tricky. You want to get the first estimate the best, so you're not chasing results all the time, which we will. We have, you know, till the first quarter to put down our first estimate. And I just don't know, you and I are Californian, I don't know how this settles out because of the politics is so steep in California and rebuilding and all the rest of it.
You're also rebuilding into the upcoming World Cup and the upcoming Olympic
Yeah,
Games.
it's a good point.
So just,
It's a good point. But we have, without getting political, we have an incompetent political class in California, as you know. That's how you get empty reservoirs and fire trucks that aren't, placed in strategic positions, even though the winds are coming and all the rest of it. They're very, very incompetent. So I'm sure there'll be a mad rush, to clean up and rebuild and look pretty for all those events. I just don't know if the politicians can get out of their own way.
well, was it Rahm Emanuel who said, never let a crisis go to waste?
Yeah.
There is already a slow-moving crisis in the California homeowners coverages before the fires.
Yeah.
And the fires will just exacerbate the whole claims process for that.
I mean, for our perspective, you're in the FAIR plan.
Yes.
I'm about to go into the FAIR plan, a couple months. It's a broken insurance market. And so when you have an elective political Department of Insurance who basically have price controls in private insurance, you can only play that game for so long before it catches up with you and just caught up with them. So there's not a vibrant, competitive private market for homeowners right now. There's no private market for earthquake, as you know. It's only 10% uptake. And so when you have these disasters, it becomes a social disaster, not necessarily an insurance disaster. There's going to be a lot of uninsured people and underinsured people. And so I think the initial public reaction would be to shake their fists at the evil insurance companies. And as more and more information gets out, they'll figure out, oh yeah, well, that's why State Farm was pulling back. They had no ability to make
No profit.
Right.
Yeah.
And who's to blame for that? And on and on. So the real question, the real unknown is the loss will be whatever the loss is. People will get their homes rebuilt, hopefully expeditiously, whatever that means in California. It will cost $30, $40, $50 billion, whatever that will be. I don't think it will change the insurance market or the reinsurance market. And in terms of the California insurance market, the question is, what now? How do we, it was already broke, like you said, before the war. What do we do now? Right?
Yeah.
And I have no idea. I have no idea what they do. I think their inclination will always be to make something like a state pool or a state solution, and that's always feels good, and it's always the worst solution.
Until there's a bunch of
Yeah. What you need to do is create an open, competitive market. It's a little painful at first. People probably overcharge or might overcharge, and the public is. But you create an open, competitive market, and that the invisible hand does its work, supply and demand balances, and you get competitive pricing. If they required citizens to buy earthquake insurance in California, which they don't, it'd be one of the biggest markets in the world. And there'd be 100 insurance companies competing for your earthquake insurance.
Yep.
And that works.
And that narrows the protection.
Right
gap.
now, there's none.
Yep.
Basically, the CEA. So, but that's a big stretch to get California politicians to realize that capitalism actually works. So,
Which is that last point is a good pivot to what you see as you're looking out at the market worldwide, all lines. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for reinsurers in general, insurers and reinsurers in general in 2025?
wow, that's a hard question. I think there's no lines that I don't know. We probably write 25 different product lines around the world. And I always bucket into 4 groupings that drive 90% of our revenues. And that's property, casualty, professional, and what I call specialty lines, which is mostly the London specialty lines, but also the stuff that we do in the U.S., like A&H and surety and mortgage and stuff like that. All those are big businesses for us, over $1 billion. And if you look at the large groupings, none of them are in peril other than the professional. Peril's the wrong word. It's just not a healthy market. But, who knows? Maybe a year from now, it's going to go into a hard market, right? It found its bottom and shoots up. Casualty, I already mentioned that the rates are all going up. Is it enough? That could be interesting, but we're not taking a bet on casualty like, okay, let's try to double our volume, right? We're just unsure. Positive signs, though, but we're unsure if it's going to really exceed our loss trend expectations. Property is what I said it was. It's up, it's down, it's adequate, but it's definitely going down. And then the special lines with all those different product lines, it's all kind of a microcosm of what I just said. Marine was good, it's coming off its highs, but it's still good.
Yep.
So kind of writ large, there's no area or product category that I can say, listen, we're really going to lean into this because we really see the opportunities. But there's also no product categories where we say we got to get the hell out because we've given up, right?
Right.
So it's one of those things that we're gonna deliver a good result by executing all the fine moments in all these different territories and product lines successfully. So it's not going to be big bets on something. Like several years ago, we lead heavy into the D&O market and the casualty market because we thought the markets were really, really good, or a couple years ago into the property market, right?
Yeah.
I don't see any of those types of dynamics working this year.
Okay. Which, turning that question over from opportunities to threats, what are we missing? What is the reinsurance industry not worrying about that it maybe should? We could say like an earthquake in Los Angeles next week would be exceedingly bad news. But
Yeah, I think cyber's worrisome. It might be my lack of knowledge on cyber. Last week, you and I and Tina were just visiting different cyber outfits in the Bay Area in California, which was interesting. But the cyber, if you look at last year, ransomware incidents were at a high. They didn't necessarily translate into claims, which is good, but the incidents are there, right? It's happening. Near systemic events, there were several of them, not just one, but like CrowdStrike. What would happen if CrowdStrike was a hack versus
a bad actor?
Right?
Yeah.
So we've had these near misses on frequency or attritional and ransomware. We've had these near misses in terms of systemic. We have cyber policy language that is all over the place. And prices are going down, and reinsurers are willing to pay more to get on the covers. I don't think the reinsurance industry certainly is thinking enough about, what are we into in this cyber thing? We haven't really even been tested, and people seem to be happy to grow market share.
The industry is collecting 15 billion of premium projected for 25. Point being, the aggregate exposure is significantly multiple of that.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing about cyber is it's been written for at least 5 years. People always write about how the demand outstrips the supply by so far because if you think about our interconnected world and the importance of cyber and the pace at which people are buying cyber and need cyber and regulations that require people to buy cyber and disclose cyber and whatever, it's like, oh, this is going to be a humongous market, and it will be for sure. But if you take a snapshot of where the supply and demand is right now, there's too much supply. Right. So we're at a moment of time, and usually, unfortunately, in our industry, and particularly in the reinsurance industry, it only clarifies after a big loss. So we'll take our share of whatever big loss happens in cyber, but we don't want to be silly about it. We're trying to focus our aggregate on the best writers, not just shock on the entire cyber. So I think cyber is something to think about that maybe reinsurers aren't thinking enough about. The other issue that just endemic now to how we do business that always concerns me is that, particularly in the property area, not exclusive, but particularly in the property area, if I ask any property owner that we have on staff, I say, how much capital do we have to deploy to your property book? They won't have an answer. If I ask any Swiss underwriter, they won't have an answer because we're a balance sheet. Right? The money is fungible.
Mm-hmm.
If I ask someone from an ILS fund how much capital, they'll tell me exactly how much capital they have to deploy. If I ask someone who has a sidecar with money, they'll tell me exactly. So and this, I'm sounding like an old geezer, but the shift towards the importance of deploying capital versus underwriting and protecting capital is so obvious to me that it definitely affects that market. So, listen, we have a great partnership with Pillar and we have a great partnership with Integral. Those guys don't get paid unless they deploy capital. So guess what?
They deploy
They
capital.
deploy capital. And so multiply that by all the different markets that have capital, and you just can't tell me that the market always for the last 10 years is so great that everyone deploys 100% of their capital. It's silly. So that puts pressure on the margins of that market where third-party capital, I don't know what percentage of total capital is third party, but it's enough where it's like peak oil. It affects the entire market. And I don't think reinsurers think about that either. We think about it. I don't think we can stop it. We're participating in it. And I think we're participating successfully in it, but it does have a bad effect on the market cycle.
We tend to concentrate on combined ratio and rate on line,
Right.
and they're focused on assets deployed.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the tricky questions I had.
All right, good.